Hi YouTube. Lighting, passable, makeup on, camera on. Let's talk about true crime. It's not a genre that I see mentioned a lot in YouTube or booktube in general. There are a lot of true crime channels where people are talking about specific cases, but I don't see a lot of people talk about the books. I've seen people talk about this year American Predator by Israel Keyes, and I'll Be Gone in the Dark about the Golden State Killer. But I haven't seen a lot of people talk about what I would consider more classic books in the genre. So I'm going to start off today with 5 books that I would recommend to true crime newbies, and just sort of to let you know where I think I would start if I was you. So number 1 on this list is The Secret Lives of Saints by Daphne Branham, and this one is about the polygamous fundamentalist Latter-day Saints based in like Colorado and Canada, things like that. Sort of the downfall of them, their illegal activities, leading up to the arrest and imprisonment of their prophet Warren Jeffs. It covers things from, the fact obviously that they're having underage children in marriages, they're committing fraud against the state, there's possibly murder, lots and lots of different things. And Daphne Branham is a really good sort of impartial storyteller in this instance. It really focuses more on how it affects the people who have sort of grown up in the cult, and how when you have a structure like that and it concentrates the power in the hands of a small number of powerful men, how people suffer because of that. And one of the things is the lost boys within that culture, where they're obviously, because one man marrying 70 odd women means there aren't enough sort of women to go around. It's a horrible thing to say, but it's true. And in order to keep the numbers of men in the community suppressed, they eject some of these boys from the community, which is just really sad. There's also a couple of good programs on it as well, which I recommend you watch. They're pretty interesting to see how things go. And I think it's a good place to start because it has a really good narrative structure to it, and also it's wider than just a serial killer or a murder, as bad as those things are, but it shows how a structure, like a cult or religion or something like that, can be so harmful. And I really recommend that book. And then I would also recommend The Night Stalker by Philip Carlo. Philip Carlo wrote a couple of good books. I believe he's passed away now. He wrote this one and also one on the Iceman, Richard Kuklinski. This one is by far, to me, the one that scared me the most. Like, literally scared me to the point where I was alone in my house and I was like, oh my god, the wind's outside, someone's coming to get me. And I think the reason is because when he's talking about Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, at least through this book and this sort of point of view, doesn't have a pattern of victims. He doesn't choose specific people. You can't predict who a victim of Richard Ramirez would be, and that's what made him, I think, so scary, because he could turn up at anyone's door, and he committed several murders, leaving behind loads of evidence. Mind you, I think it was the 70s, so obviously forensics wasn't as advanced as it was then. But this book really does cover as well how they actually identified the fact that it was Richard Ramirez, and I believe it had something to do with, if I recall correctly, stolen goods and a fence, actually identifying some goods from one of the crime scenes. And then he was apprehended by a public mob as he was passing through their neighbourhood. They recognised him as the Night Stalker and arrested him. And he died quite recently. A really good example of one of those killers that is, for some reason, a lot of damaged people feel the need to flock to and write to and think, oh, he's so, I don't have any time for that. People like Richard Ramirez are whole pieces of shit, and they should not be glamorized. And I really think Philip Carley here does a good job of not glamorizing him at all. You should see just how random, how ill he really was, and it is a scary one, I will say. I think it perfectly captures as well that sort of feeling in California in the 70s. California in the 70s was like riddled with serial killers. It must have been like one of the most dangerous places on earth, because you had like the freeway killers, you had the Hillside Stranglers, the Golden State Killer, Richard Ramirez, all these people. I don't think if I'd lived in California in the 70s, I would have been able to actually go to sleep. So I would also recommend this one if you're starting out, and also The Iceman as well. It is a good one if you are looking for more sort of mafia, organised crime type stuff. Now, the next one is a prime example of what I think of in my own head as the sort of Midwest serial killer. I mentioned California being a hotbed for all of this stuff in the 70s. There was also things going on in the Midwest, Green River Killer and BTK. Now, this book's called Bind, Torture, Kill, and it is by Roy Wenzel, L. Kelly, and Hirsch Lavinia, which is a mixture of an author and also reporters from the case. And it's really an interesting book. And the most interesting thing about BTK is how he was caught, which I won't spoil for you, because I know if you've been watching Mindhunter, you'll have seen the clips come in and out of Dennis Schrader of BTK, and they really show, personally for me, they showed just how sort of banal and boring Dennis Schrader actually was. And I think it stands in as well for books about the Green River Killer, who's I think still the most prolific serial killer, might have been overtaken now by Samuel Little, but just how actually banal and boring these men were, and how also how hard it was to catch someone like that at that time, because the murders were seemingly random, and that's, I suppose, always the problem. But also he wasn't choosing his victims from a typical high risk victim pool like runaways or sex workers or things like that. So a really interesting book. I think most interesting, as I say, from the fact of how he was caught and how his own arrogance got him caught, his own need to speak to the press got him caught. Very interesting. Have a read at it. So then number 2 is perhaps, I would say, one of the absolute classics of the true crime genre, and that is The Stranger Beside Me by Anne Rule. Now, Anne Rule, very interesting lady. She unfortunately passed away some years ago, but she had been a police officer, she was a true crime writer, and at one point she worked on a university suicide helpline, providing counselling, helping people stop, committing suicide and having crises, things like that. And at the time, she had just had one of her very first writing commissions to write about a serial killer who was preying in that Seattle, Washington area. Little did she know, she was actually sitting beside him when she was on shift at the suicide hotline, and that man was Ted Bundy. She worked with Ted Bundy and knew him sort of socially on and off for quite a long time. And she, like many other people in his life, just sort of didn't think it would ever be possible for him to be the killer. Even though I think she does mention in the book she did phone in because they knew it was a Ted. She said she did phone in and sort of leave a tip, but was comforted when nothing happened. And she kept in touch with him right through his convictions and right up until he was on death row. Very interesting book, really sort of, I suppose we've all wondered what would happen if someone we knew or someone we worked with turned out to be a serial killer, or at least I have, because I'm like that. And I think it's really good the way that she sort of approaches it and how she describes him. Again, like I said, Richard Ramirez, a lot of people, especially women, seem to be drawn to Ted Bundy and think he was really handsome and that he was really intelligent and blah, 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 but he's just another piece of shit serial killer, really. The story is interesting, but not because of him. Again, I find the story more interesting about the things that were going on around him, the investigations that were going on, the survivors, things like that I find more interesting. And I think this would truly be one of the books that I would start with. And at the moment, if you have Kindle Unlimited, The Stranger Beside Me is available on Kindle Unlimited, so you don't even need to pay for it. Now, number one is my favourite, and it's one of those ones where you don't like to say that you enjoy it because it's so horrific that you're like, I shouldn't really say that I enjoy it, but it's so interesting and it's so well researched and it's so much detail, and it's Happy Like Murderers by Gordon Byrne. Now, Happy Like Murderers is about Fred and Rose West, who lived in Gloucester, 21 Cromwell Street, and their children were taken into foster care after allegations of sexual abuse. When the children were in foster care and when they were speaking to people, they mentioned a joke that there was in their family that if you didn't behave, you would end up like their sister Heather, you would end up under the patio. And some of the social workers and police officers were like, okay, that's creepy. And none of us know where Heather is. They had no idea. Nobody had seen her. There was no record of her, since she'd left school, things like that. So they were like, listen, we're going to check out where Heather West actually is. And unfortunately, when they dug into Cromwell Street in the point where they thought her body was, they did indeed find Heather, but they also found another leg bone. And I believe the pathologist said something along the lines of, like, unless Heather West had 4 legs, there's another body here. And they went back to Fred West and he was like, well, I suppose you know then. You found them. So they did then arrested, obviously, himself and Rose and proceeded to search Cromwell Street. And they found double-digit figures of victims, unfortunately, beneath the patio, beneath the floor in the garage, and then 2 in a village where Fred West had grown up. And Happy Like Murderers covers his childhood, it covers Rose West's childhood, and it covers the periods both before and after the murders. And a lot of it is very sordid stuff. It's very... I think if you were ever going to glamorise serial killers or serial murder, I would tell you to go and read Happy Like Murderers, because there's nothing glamorous about Fred and Rose West in the universe. They are both disgusting. And it also has interviews with their children and goes into detail about what was happening with the children at the time and how it's really affected them all their lives, which you do just think, wow, the fact that they're even still with us is amazing and a miracle. And I really just love this book. It's, like I say, it's full of the gory detail and it's just so interesting. Like, the details are so interesting. And also, as with other books that I've just talked about, worrying, because this was all going on under people's nose. Girls were disappearing, threats were being made. Fred West was abusing his children. Rose West murdered one of the children while he was in prison for an unrelated crime. They were both arrested for rape against one of their nannies and didn't get any prison time for it. They got a fine. So it's always interesting to see how things get to that point. And I think there's always in a serial killer story or something like that point where you can identify that there's a survivor or someone's reported something to the police or something like that, and it should have come to an end so much sooner. So I'm also going to give an honourable mention to House of Secrets by Lowell Cauffill, which is a more recent read of mine. I watched an Evil in My Family episode about it, and it was about a family who were basically like their own cult. Like, the dad was leading his own cult, and again, just totally mind-bogglingly awful stuff that was obvious from the moon. So I'll give that one an honourable mention. As always, if people want to recommend any books to me, I would love it. And also, if you want more true crime recommendations from me, then let me know and I will always make another video, because there's always more true crime. I'm going to make a list of true crime podcasts that I really like, and also I'll probably do one maybe of some true crime booktuber, some true crime YouTubers as well that I like. So we'll see how that goes. I'll see how people like this. So that is all from me, your friendly neighbourhood true crime addict. I will see you next time. Take care. Bye bye.